those of you who don't know me, I'm David Weil. I'm the Dean of the Heller School for Social Policy and Management, and I am delighted to welcome you to this Segal Fellows in Action panel. I'm sorry I can't be there with you today. This is always a highlight of the fall semester for me, but I wanted to send you this message and wish you well on the event. The Segal program really enjoys a very special place here at Heller, and it's because of its focus on citizen leadership and also on social and racial justice that make it a very important fit to what we do at Heller in our pursuit of our motto, knowledge advancing social justice. It's really not going to be a surprise to anyone, therefore, that 35 of the Segal Fellows actually hail from our Heller MPP program, given that alignment, going back to 2008, including the 4 fellows who you're going to hear from today, Adam, Andrea, Mariela, and Pierre. I want to start by thanking Phyllis, Maura, and John, who are obviously not only who got this program going, but also the ongoing embodiment and spirit of the program. And I also want to extend my gratitude to all the donors, founders, and partners that support the Segal program. I didn't have the good fortune to know Eli, but I know Eli and Phyllis's vision is very much has been made real by this program. I have a lot of happy memories of the 10th anniversary celebration about 3 years ago of the Segal Fellows that really illustrated that, bringing together the larger set of Segal Fellows, including those from the Heller School, together and meeting those alumni and seeing what they've done, I think was inspirational to all of us and really showed the success of the mission of this very important program. It's also true, many of the Heller students who I've had the opportunity to get to know better and work with in a variety of capacities, and who I continue to keep up with as they do their work in the larger world, are Segal Fellow, former Segal Fellow graduates, Bria Price, John Valenche, Lydia Casimir Durfler, and of course current Segal Fellow Pierre Holmes. For that reason, again, I'm sorry I can't be there today to join you at this wonderful panel, but I send you my very best wishes and look forward to seeing you in the future as you undertake this important work. Thanks.
Well, thank you to Dean David Weil, and we're also excited to hear a brief word of welcome from Heller's Associate Dean for Equity, Inclusion, and Diversity, Dr. Maria Madison, who's also the Director of the Institute for Economic and Racial Equity, and was one of our amazing, has been a longtime partner of the Segal program, speaking at our retreats, but also helps get one of our internships for Pierce that ran this summer. So lots of wonderful thanks and connections with Maria, and we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Oh, am I muted? Can you hear me? Great. Thank you so much, Susan. It is an honor to join you all today for so many reasons, but not the least of which is because we're celebrating some of the greatest leaders that have come into Heller, and then to see those leaders blossom and move forward is even more exciting. I, in particular, want to call out the phrase. I'm probably going to slaughter it, so correct me if I do. But I love the phrase "to go fast, go alone, but to go far, go together." So I think, in particular, you all invited me to speak because of the rich partnerships that we're starting to build at Heller, and in particular related to racial equity and racial justice. And one of those partnerships that's really starting to blossom itself is with the RAND Corporation. And we have been in talks for over a year to try and find ways to nurture each other and have some synergistic impacts. And so through conversations with Anita Schadenjura from RAND and her burgeoning program on racial equity. They've hired another stellar individual whom I hope is on the call, Rihanna Rogers, who's now launching their Center for Racial Equity. So through that long process, we've been able to start drafting a memorandum of agreement to build our partnerships so that we can help find interns and help create and further and nurture a career pathway, a pathway particularly for students of color, a pathway that will help enhance the likelihood that we can bring in more students and student leaders. Our memorandum of agreement with RAND is also in partnership with you all. And at some point, we'll probably step out of that relationship and it'll blossom on its own. But it's going to be a possibility for us to create more trainings, more workshops, and again, more internships. We have the brain power through our master's students, and that's how we're able to nurture each other's growth. So we're building those partnerships out, and we are really excited to be doing that with you and your program, the Segal program in particular. And Pierce is just that excellent example of our ability to do that, and his summer program on reparations that we'll hear about in a few minutes. So with that, I'll just say thank you again for inviting me, and I look forward to hearing from our superstars.
Thank you so much, Dr. Madison. And I know you talked about going together rather than alone, and one of our themes is the impact of together. And so it's all 7 of our fellows, our Heller MPP students, as well as our undergraduate students that have had this incredible connection as a cohort. And you'll get to hear more about that as they talk about their internships. So with that, we will be hearing from our fellows in alphabetical order by first name. And so I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Susie. And thank you everyone for being here. Just want to say thank you to Susie, Kyle, my cohort here, who made the first year of this MPP program what it was. And I just really appreciate you all and am inspired by all of you. So just thank you for being you. I should have opened with this maybe. My name is Adam Jones. I am a second-year MPP student in the Economic and Racial Equity concentration. And this summer, I interned in the City of Boston's Economic Mobility Lab. Up on your slide is kind of an organizational chart of the lab. So it sits in the equity cabinet and within the city, within the mayor's office in the City of Boston. And the goal of the lab is, above all, to promote and advance the upward economic mobility of low and moderate income Bostonians through a combination of, I call them like small scale, high impact kind of direct support for residents, and then also a research component, which is kind of where I came into the picture this summer. I guess what drew me to the lab in the first place, I really wanted, coming into Heller, I knew I wanted some municipal government experience. I'm just really fascinated and interested in that kind of intersection between small, intimate communities, but also the institution that is government and how they can work together to do some things that maybe can't happen on a state or national level, but that can happen within that kind of shared space. And I went to Susie and Kyle. It's the first thing that I said that I wanted. And they came right back with this, and it was a wonderful fit. I got to work on a couple of big projects. One was the city's second annual childcare survey, which is mailed out to all residents of the city and parents of young children between 0 and 5, kind of let us know about their experiences with childcare, between finding arrangements, how much it costs, what the barriers are, and doing some data analysis there. And then I also worked on a student debt and home ownership survey, creating that survey, looking at that intersection of how debt serves as a barrier to home ownership, which we all recognize as one of the like main contributors to wealth and mobility. So just looking at some things that I got out of this experience, really the potential for innovation within municipal government. I don't know, I kind of got exactly what I wanted. I saw exactly what I wanted to see in terms of what just like a few really like focused, competent, passionate individuals can do when they have the resources of an institution behind them and when they're thoughtful about their goals and expectations. Every voice in the room having value I think I'm kind of saying that about myself, because I didn't feel that about myself walking into the city. I really felt kind of intimidated by all that was there, but I kind of quickly found out that I was able to bring my experiences to the table in a way that I like to think advanced the work of the lab and made it something that it might not have been if I wasn't there. And I think that's really to thank, and I want to shout out my supervisor, Ashley White, who is a Heller alumna, class of 2020, and also a Segal Fellow, who did my internship back in 2019. She worked on the first childcare survey and kind of put that on me for this round. And yeah, just really thankful for the experience that she was able to give me and giving me so much power to make this experience something that was meaningful for me. And I just want to end with this quote at the bottom. Because of my experience as a Segal Fellow, I have a deeper understanding of what it means and what it looks like to constructively pull the levers of power within a municipal government. And I'm just really thankful for that opportunity.
You just have to do the arrow button.
Yeah, I just need to see. Hello. Okay. Hi, thank you, Adam. That was wonderful. It's always really hard to follow you. It's so incredible, but also like everyone here is so incredible. So we're also very grateful to be part of this cohort. My name is Andrea Tyree, and I'm also a second year MPP student in the Economic and Racial Equity concentration. And this summer, I interned with the Crime and Justice Institute, which is a nonprofit organization based in Boston, but does work across the country in the field of criminal justice, really applying data-driven solutions to the field. I was able to work with the policing team this summer, in part because of my connections with Heller alumni and professors at Heller, but also because of being a Segal Fellow. I think it really just solidified my position within this organization. And so I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to be a fellow for many reasons, but that being one of them. Like I said, this summer I worked with the policing team at CJI, and I got to help with some of their projects around monitoring and evaluating police departments that were going through a number of reforms or changes. I also assisted with some of the research that goes into some of their surveys and research projects. So specifically, I worked to help evaluate the compliance of the Milwaukee Police Department in regard to a legal settlement that is supposed to help reduce racially disparate stops and frisks by police officers there. I also assisted with some research regarding the policies that could positively impact women in law enforcement in preparation for a survey that was going to go out to women officers in the Las Vegas Police Department. But one of the best experiences I got through that internship was learning how to build sustainable and positive relationships with the police departments and work in coordination with them to achieve better results, and being able to connect with experts in the field of policing and learning from them as I continue to do throughout the semester through some of my own independent studies, working with both my team members from CJI and experts who I've been connected to through CJI. Something that's really special to me through this summer internship is I was able to bring both my personal connection to the issue and my community perspective to the work. And luckily I had a really wonderful team who affirmed the value in that. And similarly to Adam, I can leave you all with, with a quote about my fellowship. As a Segal Fellow, I was able to reflect on my core strengths and values, and I learned how to find strengths in the area in which I was once weak. And I definitely learned that this summer, and I continue to take that with me.
One thing coming up that's not coming across to our wonderful fellows sitting here is the chat. So you're not seeing everyone say, I love Segal Fellows, you guys rock. I'm sure they say that for you.
Hey y'all. Hey y'all. Thank you, Adam, and thank you for just expressing your gratitude. And thank you, Andrea, for also expressing your gratitude. I love y'all as well. But yeah, my name is Catherine Romero. I am a fourth-year TYP student majoring in sociology, Latin America, Caribbean, and Latinx studies. And this summer, I had the opportunity to intern for a Safe Passage project. It is a nonprofit in New York City, and I got to enter them through Segal. And I'm very grateful for Segal just because Safe Passage Project had been on my radar for, I think, 2 summers, just because I wanted to learn and I was very eager and curious to just learn more about Central American migration because it's always been very prevalent in my life. So I feel like I reached out to Susie and I reached out to Kyle and expressed this desire, and they immediately found value. They found value and relevancy in the skills that I had within this immigration world that I was very scared and didn't really know how to present because I'm not a lawyer, I'm not in law school. And that's really what Safe Passage Project is made up of. So because I approached Segal with this desire, I was able to communicate with Safe Passage Project and kind of communicate what skills I could offer and what I had to bring to the table. And through this internship, I had the opportunity to interpret for attorneys and clients during meetings. I had the ability, which was my favorite because of my supervisor, she gave me the ability to also research country conditions and kind of understand like what is it and what are the reasons for why immigrants, specifically immigrant youth, are migrating to the US from these countries. And I got to prepare these documents and files, which I was very intimidated to fill out when I first found them, but I found that with patience, like when I learned how to communicate in this very professional world because of Segal and kind of figure out what my weaks and strengths were, I was able to fill these out and feel confident and like see my growth throughout the process. And I was able to most importantly, meet with clients and kind of understand more of like what their experiences were and how the questions they had when seeing these files and when seeing these documents. And I think that those were really important for me in my own personal and academic goals, because I am able to understand that I can grow these skills within like institutional and structural, within these institutional worlds, and how I can further navigate it. But yes, and I feel like the Segal Fellowship, for many reasons, it helped me, but overall, I think that it allowed me to gain the skills, like all the skills that I had gained in my own experience from the real world and my own community. And in the classroom, I was able to center it and kind of ground myself in these things, even when I was learning to navigate this new world, and also communicate that with my supervisor, which was really important to me. And I feel a lot more confident and capable of like what I can offer and how I can communicate that with whatever space I enter, because I had this initial internship with Segal, and because I had my cohort who I was able to communicate, hey, this is how I'm feeling, how can I grow from this? And that is why I am very grateful for Segal, not only for the network it's given me, but also for the cohort and the relationships I've been able to grow from it. And also I'm very grateful for Safe Passage because of my supervisor, Bethany Au, who I was able to work closely with, and just, I think, encouraged me beyond just this career world and academic world, but as a person as well.
Bethany's on and was smiling when she said that.
Hi everyone. It's gonna be really hard to follow up, and I'm sorry if I'm looking down. I like have everything written down. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, okay. Hi, my name is Maria Ranabar, and I'm a queer person of color and a First Generation college student. I immigrated to the United States at the age of 3 from Nazca, Peru, and I'm now a senior studying international global studies and sociology with a minor in women's and gender studies. My internship was with the Human Rights Campaign based in DC, and I worked really closely with the Department of HIV and Health Equity, as well as with Vanessa Castro, who's the assistant director. I worked on how, like at HRC, I was able to work on how to create a national youth campaign to combat stigma around HIV and AIDS, safe sex resources, and gender and sexuality for queer youth. In addition, I helped on a few other projects by researching on how HIV and AIDS impacts minority communities and minoritized communities, and what HRC can be doing in order to support and source together resources. The biggest thing I think I took away from my internship and with Segal and HRC this summer was that I was able to kind of solidify what I want my future to look like. And while at HRC, I was also able to build on social and like confidence skills and like taking me during a meeting, proposing new ideas, and even speaking up when something isn't really working for me, which they were really great about offering support. One of the most memorable moments this summer was that I was able to speak with the HRC Senior Leadership Board and present on what I did in my internship and what I learned and like took away from my experience. And while I was preparing for this presentation, I realized that I was able to be really vulnerable in how I had struggled as like a queer teen and how the work that I was doing was really doing work that I wish I had when I was younger. And so I just really got to speak from my experience and really transform in how I transform, like it was really transformative, is what I'm saying, and how I will continue on in my career. And on like that quick note, I also want to say, I wanted to give a shout out to my Segal buddy Alex, who was really supportive throughout the summer. And we would have like very long conversations whenever I just was going through something or just didn't know where I wanted to go in life. And they were just an amazing resource thanks to the Segal Fellowship Program. And then I will also leave off on this very quick message that as a Segal Fellow, I learned how to quickly adapt to my environment in order to better serve my communities. I was able to go outside of my comfort zone and reevaluate how I'm able to assist in institutional change.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to this phenomenal group of human beings that really warm my heart and make it very hard to follow up. So thank you for being great and being such an amazing support system throughout all of the journey with Segal. Hello, my name is Mariela, she, her pronouns. I am a second-year master's in public policy student at Brandeis, having a dual concentration in racial justice and conflict resolution. Over the summer, I had the honor of interning with Search for Common Ground's Global Policy and Outreach team. It was a phenomenal experience that I am so grateful to have gotten. I had previously served as a Peace Corps volunteer in Uganda, and so having that international work experience really helped me connect with some of the international and domestic work that Search for Common Ground did. My supervisor, Andrew, phenomenal human being. Hi, Andrew, if you're there. Really helped give me the ropes of international advocacy work. A lot of what I did over the summer involved copy editing briefs on different conflict areas like Afghanistan, Nigeria, the Sahel, but also conflict areas within the United States. And so a lot of that information that we'd gather from different conversations with local partners, we then passed on to US officials, other advocates in nonprofits and other think tank organizations, and then even at times the UN or the other high-end senior leadership. And so really one of the biggest takeaways I had from this experience was learning the inner workings of an international organization that really focuses and grounds its work in bottom-up advocacy work. As someone who is really passionate about working within the peace building field within the US and Central America, it was really great to get this experience and see how it works. I really was able to see myself in this role for the future. And I'm incredibly happy and excited to have worked alongside Andrew and so many other great individuals at Search who you can tell really live with this passion for conflict resolution, peace work. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. And I just want to say, I'm always so inspired by all of you. Like, I love hearing you talk always. And you guys make me just like, I don't know, I feel so proud to be a part of this cohort always. So hi, my name is Marissa Torelli. I am a senior here at Brandeis. I double major in politics, international global studies, and double minor in legal studies and African American studies. This past summer, I had the opportunity to work at the Youth Advocacy Foundation under their initiative called the EdLaw Project. So this is a service that falls under the Committee for Public Counsel Services, which is the public defender of Massachusetts. And my internship focused primarily on juvenile advocacy and delinquency matters and educational matters. In particular, we were handling cases where students are trying to access their services in classrooms or situations where students were not able to access their services or being denied them or excluded from classroom inclusion. And I was really grateful to be a part of a lot of different facets of the organization on both the developmental and the legal side. In terms of the developmental side, I was able to kind of see how the inner workings of a nonprofit organization goes. And then from the legal side, I was able to engage with the local coalition work, the public policy work, whether it be producing annual report regarding the impact that EdLaw had in the Massachusetts and Boston area specifically. And I was able to, really fortunate to engage in a lot of trainings that the legal interns were able to experience, like in addition, like regarding like classroom behavior, how that's impacted with students, especially with students of color, able to learn more about child welfare policy through like one-pagers, surveys, data analysis, and things of that nature. What really brought me to EdLaw, actually my advisor Marissa came to speak to my sophomore juvenile justice class, and hearing her passion, hearing her speak, I was just so amazed by everything she had to say. And everyone at EdLaw is just like Marissa. Day after day in this class, I was so engaged in what we were learning, and I was kind of lost at that point on like what I wanted to pursue. I didn't think law school was going to necessarily be for me, and but I knew after that class I wanted to engage more in that work, and especially in the effects of COVID and how education looks completely different now. That only made me want to engage in this work even more. So with that budding passion, my internship ended up directly relating to my passion in life, career-wise and academically. And it really allowed me a really great amount of insight into what my future can look like in terms of my career. And this summer, I think the most important thing I was able to take away is the importance of advocacy, whether it be for myself, the people around me, the communities I engage myself in, the clients we work with, my coworkers, whoever it may be, that the importance of advocacy can really extend beyond the workplace, and like advocacy is able to make such an impact in people's lives, whether it be just speaking up for someone or going above and beyond representing them in a delinquent matter. I'm really grateful I was able to take that away from EdLaw this summer and be able to put that into my future endeavors, both academically and professionally. Thank you.
Hi, Pierce Holmes. I'm a second-year MPP student in the economic and racial equity concentration. And before I get all into what I did, I want to thank a few people. First of all, everybody involved in the Segal program, the Segal family, just for making this experience possible for all of us. But speaking for myself, just my experience was incredible. Thanking my supervisors at Brand, and also thank you to Susie and Kyle for everything they do. Thank you to all of my co-award mates just for being amazing people, apart from their intellectual capacity, which by the way is incredible. You really don't realize how little you know until you're in a room with a bunch of brilliant people. So it's always good to be humbled like that. But no, I sincerely care about all of them dearly, and that means a lot to me. And lastly, my parents are on this call. I am not doing anything if they're not here. Everything that they've done for me and provided for me. So if I don't acknowledge that, then I'm not acknowledging myself and why I am here. So thank y'all as always. And I'm from Springfield, Massachusetts. Y'all know what that is. So my experience was working with the RAND Center to Advance Racial Equity Policy, which only came about within the last year. And specifically, I got to focus on reparations work in that time frame. And my concentration in racial equity has always been, before I was any sort of concentration, that was my goal with anything that I did in my life, was to find ways to advance that and advance communities like the one that I grew up in. And bearing that in mind, getting to work on something that is so directly applicable to communities of color and Black communities especially was an experience that I really wouldn't trade for anything. And it gave me a lot of perspective. I got to engage in the research directly and help make meaningful contributions to the papers, the series of working papers that they were developing over at RAND. And I also got to deviate from that and sort of create my own projects based on my own research and opinions that I had around the topic. And having that flexibility and getting to apply not just things that I got from the MPP program, skills that I developed there, but also just using the competencies gained from the Segal Foundation really made a huge difference in my experience. And the little quote I have here is completely true. I mean, the Segal Fellow experience really forced me to reflect on how much context matters and everything. It's something that I'm very aware of, but really having to think about it in light of the work that I was doing and how where we are now in history are so necessarily entangled, and how using that to hopefully advance society over time, which is a really tall order, but we're gonna try and do it. I really valued that experience and just having that foundation, and of course, having the support of everybody beside me. And yeah.
Thank you so much, all of our fellows. I wish you guys could see the chat. It's coming in with hearts and celebratory things and woohoos and yay. So thank you guys. And one of the things that we did in our fall reflection sessions as a cohort this semester is we said, what are the questions you guys want to answer as a panel before we open it up to Q&A? And so these are the questions that the Segal Fellows wanted to share a little bit about. So they'll each answer 2 of the questions. And then after that, we'll have time for hopefully at least 2 or 3 Q&A questions. But we'll start off with this one. How have your summer internship and Segal Fellowship impacted your academic and or professional path? A lot of you guys referenced this already, but we're excited to hear more on that. And I think we'll have folks stay seated, and Kyle has the video. So we'll start with Andrea and then we'll go through the other.
Hello. Hopefully people can hear me. My experience both in the Segal Fellowship and through my internship this summer really helped me figure out where I want to be after I graduate from color, which was all I wanted, to figure that next step out. The Segal Fellowship provided me with the space to reflect on my values, something I'll mention again later, but that allowed me to realize what matters to me and how my work in the future can really foster my qualities as a citizen leader. And this summer, working at CJI with just such like a wonderful team really made me fall in love with the policy implementation side of the work and the monitoring and evaluating and getting to work directly with stakeholders on the issues that matter to me, which is I hope to do after I graduate from color. But I really just realized how much strength I have within my values and how my personal connection to the work, how my passion for the work can really be the fuel for the impact that I can hopefully make in the field.
Similarly, I would say that having this experience impacted like where I want to see or what I desire for myself after Brandeis. Just because I feel like I've realized that a lot of the work that I was doing or the conversations I was a part of, I was already doing it on a community or an interpersonal level. But I think it allowed me to think of it more as a professional way and figure out how I can see myself within that space, and also balancing those 2 things of like, what does it look like when I'm speaking to my own community and within these conversations and these rooms that were maybe not built for me or like built for like people like me. So I think it made me a lot more confident and it made me a lot more hopeful for the types of relationships that I was coming with, like even with working with my supervisor. I feel like she had a lot of patience in me, and she just motivated me to want to be part of even like the nonprofit world of just being part of people who genuinely desire and believe in working towards a better, like working towards giving accessible, I know like Safe Passage Project, working towards giving free legal services. So that was really cool to see. And it was also, I think what impacted me most is, from my understanding, is like I need to be around a nonprofit that is communal or just looking at issues from very different perspectives. Just because I know it's a past project, that's what I valued a lot, is that there was multiple layers and multiple lenses of how they were looking at migration, not just necessarily valuing things solely from a law perspective, but also understanding that these are genuine people that are experiencing displacement. So I think that for me, that was the most impactful thing of what kinds of spaces I want to be a part of, and understanding that this work chose me, I didn't choose it, and embracing that in all its potential.
I think similarly, I kind of really learned that the work that I want to do, I want it to be surrounded in community and community based. Just being surrounded by everyone here, in my Segal cohort, as well as like how close that the Department of HIV/AIDS and Health Equity team at HIC, they all worked very, very closely together. And I think that's kind of what I want to pursue. I also learned this summer that I really struggle with imposter syndrome. And I think like Segal and then HIC also really helped me take back that kind of confidence that I want to have, and like the things that I believe in the work that I do. And because the work that I do is for my community, and like, yeah, it just helped me really figure out what I want to do in my career. I had a lot of like unlearning to do this summer with like how I think about community work and just reshaping it. And it gave me just like a clearer path and like just the community that I want to build with like what I want to do. Similarly, like the work that I do isn't like I didn't choose it, it did choose me. I think it's led me up to this point that I feel like I'm really proud of it.
Thank you for sharing. As a first generation student who didn't know a lot about the international advocacy field, I often associated international work with having a lot of gatekeepers and often being with like high-end senior diplomats. And so having the opportunity to intern with Search for Common Ground and have my foot in the door was a great opportunity to actually be able to see myself in that space and actually see what other individuals who are doing international advocacy work and even domestic peace building work looks like, their interests, their passions, what keeps them moving. So I love the opportunity to be introduced to the field, learn its inner workings, its structure, and a lot of the history behind international peace building work. I think most importantly, one of the main takeaways I had was to have the opportunity to see how a lot of the peace building field that is mostly from organizations based in the US is now reflecting inwardly and transitioning towards doing peace building, racial justice work within the United States. I love the opportunity to be able to network with a lot of individuals that are asking these very critical and important questions. I had really good experience improving my writing. Andrew was really patient and intentional about going in and copying, editing a lot of the policy briefs and other documents that we were developing. As an ESL student, I have always felt insecure about my writing ability. So having the opportunity to have one-on-one editing sessions about my writing and learn pros and cons and how to improve it was really a great opportunity over the summer. And then overall, seeing how bottom-up advocacy work looks like was really great for my career moving forward.
I feel like prior to this summer, I kind of had like bits and pieces of like a collage to like what I like want to do in my future. Like I knew it like has something to do with law. I knew it has something to do with youth. Where the intersection was, I like didn't know that there were so many opportunities for me. Like EdLaw this summer really demonstrated that if I wanted to go on like a public policy legislation route, like I'm able to do that in conjunction with a legal career. I won't have to sacrifice my interest or any aspects of who I am as a person in order to accomplish my goals. And same with being around everyone in the cohort. You guys even opened my eyes to all the possibilities of like what I can accomplish in life. And I can't express enough how inspiring everyone on this cohort in this room have always been to me. And like not only just being able to enter at EdLaw, but seeing how everyone else is experiencing their internships really opened my eyes to what my future can look like. And I feel like I was really lost before this, but now I feel like every day I really am able to reflect on what my past summer has been like, the conversations I've had with everyone in this room like, and kind of put the pieces together and make my senior year a little bit less stressful in terms of thinking what my life is like after Brandeis.
I would say, first of all, I forgot to thank somebody else, Dr. Madison. Thank you for everything that you have done for me and all of the support you have offered. I will refuse to not acknowledge that here. But as far as this question, I really do think the internship helped solidify a lot of things for me professionally, because I knew that I wanted to be involved in policy work and hopefully doing that at some impactful level. And I was very curious about the think tank space as somebody who only halfway knew what a think tank was, give or take 2 years ago. And getting to work in one like RAND that places so much emphasis on the impact of the research and getting it into the right hands and getting it into the hands of the community was extremely valuable for me. and it just aligned, similar to how Andrew was saying, align with my values and the things that I really hold dear to me and how I'd like to see change enacted. And as for the fellowship, it really did influence the way that I was thinking about how I prefer to work versus how jobs sometimes function, and sometimes the adaptability that can come with having to engage in different types of work with all different kinds of people. But just in general, being a part of an internship that gave me the flexibility to focus on something near and dear to the Black community in particular was the most rewarding thing I could have done. And so that was probably the most significant piece for me.
Thank you all. We'll move on to our second question about how have your summer internship and Segal Fellowship tied into your values as a citizen leader and your goals for action as a citizen leader? So Andrea.
So when I was thinking about this question, I think the first thing that came to mind was thinking about policy or government as being not just about coming up with ideas or being creative, finding creative solutions to like entrenched problems, which is incredibly important, but also about actually reaching the people with your solution, right? Like your, to be kind of crude, like your solutions are almost meaningless if they don't reach people, or your ideas don't mean as much if they're not reaching the people who you want them to reach. Just a small scale example from like my internship, our childcare survey. It was the second one. We did one in 2019. This was the second one. We saw response rates go up. We saw like number of respondents go up. But still, despite so much work with communications and outreach, there were such disparate response rates in different neighborhoods in the city. So wealthier, wider neighborhoods like Jamaica Plain, West Roxbury, have really high engagement with the survey, which is great. We want to hear from everyone, but neighborhoods that were Blacker, browner, and poorer, like Mattapan, Roxbury, had pretty woefully low response rates. And it made me think about the work being, people need to know why it's important for them to engage with government or engage in policy. And again, I don't think this diminishes the work that we did over the summer. I think it's just to say that the work can always be improved. And I think part of the improvement is making sure that you're reaching people. You're letting people know what is policy going to do for them? Where are you going to meet people? Like, how are you going to engage them in something as simple as a survey, right? Like letting them know that there's something in it for them, that there is value to the policy process if they engage in that kind of way. And that really changed my way of thinking about it. It's not just about like being the smartest policy person in the room, or about being having the creative ideas, if you can, bring them to the people who you want to bring them to.
I have two things. One, as a Segal Fellow, we learned the importance of social capital, which has always been something I've considered in my life. I've always wanted to be able to bring people together over issues and try to find some middle ground and some solutions. And I think the summer working with CJI, I got to see that in real time, as they do a wonderful job of working on what is a very divisive issue of policing in America, having to work with police departments, but with also community members who might not be supportive of the police departments, and trying to understand how to maintain both of those relationships and the importance of facilitating spaces where people can come together and try to work together to reach solutions. I realized that there is a space for me in this work to do the things that I've always wanted to do to bring people together. And that has just been an incredible experience. Also, thanks to the Segal Fellowship, we had a lot of time this past fall, to reflect on our values and our strengths. And that's made a huge impact on me. I realized the importance for myself, the values of authenticity, of purpose, and of community. And I learned, based on my reflections, that I'm most professionally satisfied in my work when I'm serving a purpose that is greater than my individual impact or gain. When my work is contributing to a community that's larger to me. And when I'm able to tie that work into my own lived experience and have that personal connection to it, then I feel that I'm doing the best work I can. And in the field of policing, there's nothing more personal for me. There's something I feel a deeper connection to. And to my family, who I also believe is on this call, I do this work for you, I do this work for us, and it motivates me to keep going. So I really am grateful to the Segal Fellowship to allow me to come to that realization. And I'm grateful for CJI for giving me the space to do the work that matters the most to me.
Just following up on all these great responses, I would say that this summer and the Segal Fellowship really allowed me to understand the balance between both theory and practice and how they're both needed within this work, just because before this summer, I feel like I've had exposure or experience within both different forms of advocacy, whether it be on like groundwork or also within the classroom learning things through an intellectual lens. This was my first time where I felt like I had the tools within both spaces. And I had actually had the space and the freedom to tap into both of those things, and I was allowed to see myself grow and continue challenging and continue critiquing even my own values and how I wanted to, what I believed or what my purpose, as you said, what even was, just so I wouldn't stay stagnant and what is what is expected of me or what I'm being told to do, but rather really question why I was doing this work and why it was meaningful to me. And as similar to Andrea, it reflected a lot of like me going back to my original purposes, which is like my community. And I think that was only possible by balancing both an intellectual framework, but also on the groundwork. And I will also say that I think that this, with Safe Passage, like a lot of the values that it held, I realized I couldn't commit to a lot of things if I didn't also reflect that within an interpersonal level. In the sense that, like I knew when there were times where I wasn't able to reach someone, I had to understand that there were structural institutional barriers that at times makes this hard to even get on a call with someone to have this conversation, and that is okay and that is more than valid. But I had to do that within a professional world and not just like within my own community, my own family, which was really, I think really set up the values that I want to have within whatever space I enter, of just ensuring that I'm committed to understanding and compassion. And yeah, I think those were most of the values that I took from this internship and Segal Fellowship.
Thank you so much. We're still getting in the hearts, the cheers, you guys are powerful in the chat. We also got in the chat reminder that we don't have a huge amount of time left. So for the last panel question, we try to stick within the minute, but what you're going to say is really powerful. A little bit more about what challenged you most about your internship experience.
Okay, thanks. I think the biggest that I was thinking about data analysis and how to tell stories with data. Like what is it? How are data more than numbers? Like if I'm talking about like our childcare survey, and we have responses about like costs and like arrangements that are ideal or not ideal for parents, like what does it mean to tell that story in a way that's truthful, but also powerful, but also like very clear and sober in its claim to any sort of like implication, right? Like, and I don't know, it's a lot of power to be a storyteller. And I think there's a lot of subjective decision making that I learned that goes into something that seems as black and white as data, but you're crafting a story, and that's it took a lot of talking to a lot of very thoughtful and like knowledgeable and really like clear-eyed people when thinking about like how to do that powerfully. Because it's important to be to wield that power responsibly and intentionally. And that's something that I feel like I had to struggle with at first and then kind of grow into as I went along.
I think at HRC, I kind of struggled with how large of an organization it was. It was an amazing experience learning like all of these like different people and these different organizations, but then coming on to a Zoom call and it was like 200 people on a Zoom call, which I've never experienced before. So while it was insane how many people I can just connect to, it was also a bit intimidating, like having to navigate like the Zoom world and like at the same time do really meaningful work with people. And it was just kind of like on that kind of confidence thing that I keep talking about. Like I just kind of built up the confidence to send like a little Zoom link to meet up with someone and like want to talk to them. When I know if this was like an in-person situation, I'd be able to just
go to their office and like get a cup of coffee, or like having a more personal relationship with the people that I work with, which is something that I was really, really like yearning for and looking for. Especially when we're dealing with like sensitive material like HIV and AIDS and just BIPOC resources, all of the things. Like it was just something that I had to like really work through and like wanting to like again build on my social skills. Yeah, I think that's all.
What I found most challenging from my internship experience was coming to terms with my role within the international advocacy field. As someone who has done Peace Corps service and is familiar with the international development field and its more traditional top-down approach to doing advocacy work, I had a lot of challenges seeing myself within that space and trying to understand a lot of the complex history that it's had. Search really has a great localized approach for doing advocacy work. They really prioritize their local community partners being the individuals who lead the advocacy policy initiatives that Search then passes on to international leaders. I, as a US citizen and someone who is not from a lot of these international communities where we are working in, had issues with seeing myself in that work. As someone whose family is from Mexico and has a lot more ground within the United States, I think it's now become clear for me that I see myself more working within this space, doing immigration work, racial reconciliation work around the Northern Triangle and issues here. And so that really helped me see how I could see myself within this space and can also help support other organizations when they try to have a more balanced role in the international peace building field.
What definitely challenged me the most in my position, and I've like struggled with this a lot in my past internships and the volunteer work I do, is knowing that you cannot help everyone. Even though EdLaw is incredibly successful in most of its endeavors, there's always something in the back of my head that just remembers like there's always going to be that one case, and I have one in my mind particularly of this young girl sitting in jail, incarcerated in an adult prison, and she's only 15, 16 years old, and knowing that there's nothing that we can really do for her, and just trying to do the bare minimum, getting her services, and just like knowing that and saying that I'm maybe not EdLaw anymore, and like I think about that girl, and I'm sure everyone who does work in the social justice field is probably familiar with this feeling, and like it's something that just stays with you for so long. I'll probably stay with me for years after this, and like knowing that the work you do directly affects people, even if you're not seeing them or speaking to them, is kind of gut-wrenching sometimes. And the way I kind of like managed it is just going to directly to the people who do that work, like my supervisors, and in a particular case and speaking about, I spoke to the attorney for like 15, 20 minutes on how she does it and how she managed to wake up every day at 8 a.m. to go to work and probably go to bed at 9 p.m. still doing work, and really hearing from her. And I feel like I was really able to find value in speaking to people who have done this work already and are able to give me so much insight.
I think a few things that challenged me, two of them I think were really relevant to all of us, not just in this room, but anyone doing this type of work. One was just wondering whether or not the research that we were doing was really going to make the impact that we wanted to have. Was it going to hit the communities that we wanted it to? Was it going to be available to them? And just constantly having that battle of whether or not what you're doing really means anything, I think can come up for a lot of people, but I do think it is ultimately still important, and it does have a lot of meaning, something reassuring. And then also just considering, as much as the experience was amazing, and I appreciate what Rand offered me, it is also a thing where you consider the positionality of your own organization and what they mean in the grander infrastructure of things, and what is their role in the systems that do oppress people. How do we consider how these things all work together? But again, there is ultimately a lot of great work being done. It's just something that I feel like a lot of us have to contend with on a personal level. And then just as an individual, me being there, I felt like there were definitely sort of lapses in the work at time, which was a combination of being virtual, being in research work, which inevitably has its own lapses, and then also being the inaugural fellow in a way, which puts on this added pressure and also this, well, it's an expectation of doing the work while also not really having a pathway defined for you. But the same time, I do take a lot of value in the fact that hopefully I was able to make that path a little bit easier for somebody coming along behind me.
Thank you so much. One of the chats that came in the agency says, we have a brighter future because of you. Thank you for the impact that you've had, and thank you for the honest and deep way that you shared. Normally, we would have tried to go to Q&A right now, but I know we're out of time. So maybe, Phyllis, instead of asking a question for us to have time to answer, perhaps you could pose one for us to think about, if that works.
Oh, wow, that's quite an invitation. Hi, everybody. I am so inspired by all that you accomplished and learned, the impact you had, and all that I learned from each one of you. If we had had time to engage on a question, I would have gone back to the beginning when Dr. Madison brought in this quote of going farther together. I think that could well be the mantra for the Segal program. And what I'd love you to reflect on, and at some point I'd love to hear, what was it about how the other Segal Fellows, those in your cohort, and those in the network who became members from earlier cohorts, what was it about your interactions with them that helped to make this, your experience successful so far? And then the flip of that is, how would you hope to make the experience of other Segal Fellows in the future successful? Maria mentioned her Segal buddy. It's clear that each one of you together in the cohort are loving each other. And it's the texture of that that I'd hope to learn more from. So maybe as a follow-up. And
well, and we might just take one or two of you want to give like the 10-second response to that. I know some folks might have to leave at this point. For those of you who want to stay on, we'll have one or two fellows answer that. But before folks leave, just want to thank again our incredible fellows this year, our amazing host site partners, the Segal family, everyone here at Heller and Brandeis, the Center for Youth and Communities team, and all of you who are on today, whether you're here as a potential applicant or a partner or a founder. So thank you so much. And we'll end with one or two brief responses to Phyllis's question. Thank you.
yeah, see if you could do it as a popcorn. You know what that's like. Give a word, 2 words, that's all.
Word or two popcorn. We'll start with Pierce this time and come the other way.
Love, I mean, more than anything, it's a lot of love in this cohort, it's a lot of love back here. And that's how you make better work and better movement.
I would definitely say compassion, wisdom, insight, and like love. That wholeheartedly.
I would say perseverance. I don't think I could have persevered through the summer and just in general COVID and life and school without individuals like these who really, we talk about imposter syndrome, we talk about dealing with hard issues, and we persevere together.
I'd say empowered. I think each and every one of you really makes me feel really empowered to always continue and doing like the work that we love. I would say accountability and passion, just because I feel like throughout this internship, I felt very accountable to meet the goals that I had set myself up from the beginning. Like even when I wanted to reach out to someone, I know Andrea had to like push me to do so. And I also just think that everyone here is very passionate about what we do.
Yeah, just checking in and cheerleading. I feel like we're all each other's biggest cheerleaders in this room, and that's really wonderful to have.
I think the word for me is just kind of like light. Like there's such like brightness and really like guiding lights in everyone. Here, everyone who I've come across. In Segal more broadly, just people who I can look to and know that like we're all right. Like things are hard, but we're gonna be all right. It's really special.
Inspired by by you all. So grateful to all of you who are our founders and partners, and Kyle will be coming up after we stop the recording to give each of you guys a thank you gift, including this bag that you probably can't see that says the impact of together. So that is very much our theme. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you Kyle, Laney, and the whole center team. Thank you Phyllis and John for joining us from the family, Dr. Madison and Dean Weil for your welcomes. Everyone who's here in person.